And we are live with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. And ladies and gentlemen, we are just a couple days away from this year's NBA draft. Just a week after the Denver Nuggets won their first NBA championship, we now get to decide the future for some of the rest of these teams in the National Basketball Association as they look to get an inch closer to winning their own NBA championship. Andrew, should be a fun and exciting time this Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of teams looking for the NBA draft this upcoming Thursday, being held in the Barclays Center in
Yep.
Brooklyn, New York. This is something I always look forward to every single year, but it seems like this draft class isn't as strong as it is in the past. It seems like outside of the top couple of guys, not a lot to go off of, at least from what I've seen so far.
I
I think you're
think
going to have some good depth pieces later on, but outside of really Victor Wembanyama, I don't think there's really a true number two guy.
I think after him, it's really going to come down to, you look at guys like Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller. We know the off the court issues with Brandon Miller that happened this season. Henderson, not really known as much considering that he was a G League player. So unless you watch a lot of G League this year, you don't really know that much considering he didn't go to college. So he is an interesting prospect because a lot of teams are very enamored with him at being their new starting point guard potentially for this upcoming season. We've heard rumors about the Pelicans trying to trade up to get him. We've heard a lot of rumors about teams that want to get this kid. I mean, Steph Curry has been training him this offseason and helping him. So if one of the best players in the league is trying to train a guy like that, it really helps your draft stock. And he's projected to go at least number 2 or number 3 in the draft. So it's a very interesting time with this NBA draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So my big beef with this is looking at the entire lottery, there's really only one true freshman in this class, which is Cam Whitmore out of Villanova, the small forward. All these other guys are the older freshmen.
Yep.
They're 19, close to being some over 20 years old. And if you're going to be so much older than the other competition that you're playing against, if you're a 19-year-old or 20-year-old freshman and you're still not putting up really eye popping numbers, to me, that's a red flag right off the bat.
Well, do you think that has an issue with the whole COVID year? Do you think that takes into effect?
This isn't our first COVID draft class.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna say no, but I think this is just something that's becoming more and more prevalent going forward.
that's fair. No, I completely agree. I mean, it could definitely be a red flag, but sometimes those red flags turn into green flags at the end of the day and help you get to that point where you get into the postseason. They step up in big time ways and they win you championships. No one thought Nikola Jokic, when he was taken in the second round, would be the player that he is today. And look where the Denver Nuggets are, winning their
I know.
first NBA championship.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I have no problem with older players, but um, there's always been a stigma of taking the guys like, for example, Jalen Brunson, who was an older player. He was a 4-year senior. But Jalen Brunson, when he was drafted, was only a year or two older than a lot of these guys that are freshmen, which
Right.
is crazy to me.
No, I mean it's definitely interesting to see what will go down this Thursday. There's going to be teams trying to trade up potentially, teams maybe wanting to move out and get established talent, and not having to wait for those talents to be established. But we'll have to see what goes down. But before we can get there, Andrew, we have to talk about the big breaking news that happened just yesterday between the Phoenix Suns and the Washington Wizards. A huge trade involving Bradley Beal now going to Phoenix in exchange for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, a couple of second round picks, and multiple pick swaps. Huge trade going down now, giving the Suns another big three in regards to them having Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Still have DeAndre Ayton as well. Now they add Bradley Beal. They have a very formidable lineup going into next season. Overall, what was your take about this trade?
Well, from my perspective, it makes sense for Phoenix Suns based on their roster construction, and this is how I'm going to explain it. So, based on their roster construction, Kevin Durant is going to be 35 years old next season. Bradley Beal is going to be 30. Devin Booker is going to be 27. They want to maximize that potential of Kevin Durant for the next season or two. So, to them, they already
Well, I believe
they
Durant's
already
already. I didn't mean to cut you up. I think Durant only has 2 years left on his current deal, right?
I was about to say that. So
Okay.
KD is gonna be 37 by the time this expires.
Yep.
They have a very short window, right? And they're trying to extend that because Chris Paul's clearly past his prime, right? He's clearly his window is gone. However, Bradley Beal is still kind of towards the end of his prime. So the problem with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin
Devin
Booker
Booker.
is that where's the money going? Because you have DeAndre Ayton in there. He's gonna be the fourth. He's gonna be the fourth guy now. Those four guys account for. They bring you way over the cap, and you still have 11 other spots on this basketball team.
Yep.
So if they can parlay this and trade Ayton for a bench, another starting caliber center,
Maybe a point guard too, because
I
my next
see.
question was going to be who really is going to be the point guard of that team.
Chris Paul when he comes back on the buyout market.
Do you think Chris Paul goes? I mean, I did hear he wants to go back, so
I mean, it'd be. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think it'd be
I don't think
absolutely
so
hilarious
either.
though.
But I think that
You
would be
imagine
hilarious.
that'd be some New York Yankees like when Chapman got traded to Chicago and he came back.
Yeah,
That'd be something like right out of that. But I don't think it'll happen. I don't know who their point guard is gonna be. Point guard is probably the most important position in the NBA, but we're also a dime a dozen. You could
right.
find a really really good point
They might
guard
just roll with Beal
almost in the bargain
or
bin.
Booker going at point guard for next season, which
I think they
I
need a
don't.
true point guard.
Which
I
I
don't agree
agree.
with that.
I don't think that's smart for them to do, but that's right now. I think what they're going to lean towards, unless they make a trade with, and like you said, DeAndre Ayton being involved.
Yeah, so DeAndre Ayton has to get traded, and they need to fill out that bench, fill out the other two spots in the starting lineup. But I don't know what Ayton's value is at this point.
I mean, we heard
I,
the
I
rumors
really don't know
about
what his
the
value is.
Pacers deal with Miles Turner last season. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's always. I feel like Miles Turner is rumored to be
He's
getting
always
traded
on the
everywhere.
market. Yeah, I don't. I agree with you. I don't know what his value is because he's on a big contract. He's still relatively young too, which is
Oh, he's very young.
yeah. Which again, if he goes to the right team, who knows? You could finally get that guy that went number one overall just a couple years ago. So I'm not sure where it would happen or for what it would go down for in the trade. But you're right. If Phoenix can't make a move to get rid of him, then it leaves them in a predicament where they realistically will not have a bench. They're not going to be able to really sign anyone in the offseason. They're going to have to get a lot of players on the mid level exception.
I don't even think you're allowed to get the mid level exception anymore. I think after this offseason, if you're over the luxury tax, you can't give players the MLE anymore. So they're
Uh,
stuck with that minimum, guys. So
yeah,
at the very best, you have a retirement home filled with good players that are
right.
past their prime, or you have a bunch of young and hungry guys that are willing to play there in a 1 year deal.
I'm just trying to think of teams that would do a trade and maybe get them a point guard and a center in return. It's tough. My mind immediately goes to the Magic for some reason. I'm not sure
Well, the
why.
Magic have a plethora of point guards. That's why.
Right. And they can give you a guy like Wendell Carter, who's not a bad center. He's not the best center, but he is a serviceable center in my opinion.
So if they wanted to move on from someone like Cole Anthony, I really think
That's
you can get someone like Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter for DeAndre Ayton.
I wouldn't even mind. I don't know how they feel about Markel Fultz compared to Cole Anthony, and
I
Markel Fultz
think
wouldn't be bad either.
I think Orlando's buying more into Markel Fultz than
I
Cole
I
Anthony.
agree with it. I'm not sure how they feel about it because you're right. They have a lot of point guards on that roster, and I think
And you have Jalen Suggs too. So one of those
right.
guys have to go. And if Orlando feels they can get DeAndre Ayton, pair him up with Paolo in the front court, have two number one
The
overall
Magic would
picks,
be
plus you have Markel Fultz, it's three
right.
number one overall picks.
Yeah, that would be a fun team to watch if they were able to make a deal like that go down. So I'm curious to see what does happen in the upcoming weeks, because obviously free agency is kicking off next Friday. That will be interesting to see what happens in regards to all the big name free agents that we're going to look into this offseason. We talked about Kyrie Irving. I would imagine Chris Paul is going to be on the market now. I don't expect him to be a Wizard this year. There's news today about a former NBA champion that is going to be in the free agent market. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I think an interesting note about this trade is that if Aiden does go, I think the Suns, in the best possible way, just need to get rid of some cap, try to find a guard and maybe a center, hopefully, and get you a starting five, and then get some money to at least get you some role players on your bench. Because you saw what happened with Denver. They used those role players to their advantage, and they were able to help them win that championship this year. The bench is a key part in winning championships overall.
Yeah, no, they definitely need a bench. If not, if they could maybe. I feel like if they can make that deal with the Magic, the one that we just made up right now, and they could fill out the roster that way, and then sign a couple of decent bench pieces, 2 or 3 guys to get your rotation up to an eight man during the playoffs. I think you'd be fine that way, but it's still a long uphill battle for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they had another bad end of the season after the previous one, the year before, losing badly and against the Denver Nuggets in Game 6 at home. They've got to figure something out because they have a new owner. He wants to win a championship. They got Kevin Durant for the reason of winning a championship, and it went the same way they did the year before. You add Bradley Beal, it helps you get in that position, but it will all be for nothing if they're not able to surround them with talent on and off the bench. So they need to figure that out in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, only
we'll have to
time
see.
will tell. But I want to go into some more NBA. Some more NBA news is that Draymond Green is going to be declining his player option. He's going to be a free agent. I think this is the first time he's been a free agent in since 5 or 6 years, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, so he's been a Golden State Warrior for life. He's had that beef with LeBron in the past. Now he seems to be becoming more
open to
chummy with
playing
him.
with him. Yeah.
Do you think he becomes a Laker?
I'm not. I would not be surprised if this is the end of him in Golden State. I
I
feel
think
like
it's the end. I think it's
I
the end.
I felt like it's been rumored for such a while now, and this is kind of the Warriors' way of getting out of it. Him declining the option. Now they're obviously going to try to look into some sign and trade scenarios. So I wouldn't be surprised if Draymond is a Laker. Um, there's going to be a lot of teams that are quote unquote contenders that are going to look for a guy that's won championships in the past, is a key contributor with his defense and his playmaking ability. That's a guy you would really want for your team trying to help you win a championship. So he'll be a hot commodity in this free agency. I just don't think Golden State's going to be the team he goes back to. I think he's done there. I think they're just looking. They have a new GM now. They're
Mike,
looking to, yeah, Mike Dunleavy. He's the new GM of the team, so he's going to be looking to try to revamp that roster in a way and
yeah,
try to get them back to the ways of winning championships.
you hit the nail right in the head. This makes the new GM's job, who we did mention is Mike Dunleavy Jr.
Yep,
His job has become so easy now because now he's got to come like Joe Lacob. He stepped down because he didn't want to be the guy that says, "Okay, someone has to get rid of Draymond or Steph or Clay or Jordan Poole. One of these, Andrew Wiggins, one of these guys has to go." And I don't want to be the bad guy here. I don't want
just too much money on the board.
gets too much money on the board. They have 15 co-owners, so they all a majority would need to approve this. And Joe, he didn't want to be the Lacob didn't want to be the guy to just like come at tearing down. So Draymond Green leaving makes his job so much easier. Not only does he get Draymond off his books, he doesn't have to be the bad guy now. So this is
Right.
to him, this is a home run right now for Golden State.
Yeah, I think it's a home run for both sides, including for Draymond, because now he gets to test his value in this offseason and see what teams will become available and trying to get him to go to their team and see how much money he can make. Because remember, the player option he had was for $27 million. So he's definitely thinking he can get a good type amount of money in this offseason and help a team win a championship at the end of the day. Because he's already won, I think he's won 4 or 5 championships, if I'm not mistaken. I can't think
Yeah,
off the top
no,
of my
he
head.
has I think what Draymond?
Yeah, Draymond.
He has 4 championships. They
Four
matched
championships.
LeBron last offseason.
Right. I think a team like any team that could really use defense would be very, very, looking into getting him. A team like the Lakers wouldn't mind them because we've heard the rumors, as you said, with LeBron and him. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas goes after him, maybe because we all know how they were defensively last season. That's why they missed the playoffs. I think a guy like that could really help them. I'm just not sure how much, like I said, how much money he would command. But if he's trying to win a championship, I don't think he would command that much. So I'm
Yeah,
curious to see what he does in this offseason.
yeah, it's gonna be one of our storylines to look at going into the draft. Um, Next on the list, we said John Morant getting suspended 25 games, which I think we had covered in the last pod.
We did.
Um, We didn't get the exact amount, but we just kind of had an idea. I said I think 50. You had said 30, so I think you win this game if you could do it by Price is Right rules. But uh, only 25 games seems a little light to me. I think he should have gotten more. I think he should have gotten a season. But I think in the historical context of comparing it to Gilbert Arenas, how he brandished the gun in the locker room and he got 30 games, that's my assumption what they base this off of.
Yeah.
So if so, that's reasonable, but it seems still a little bit low for me.
Well, if you think about it from Memphis's point of view, I mean, only getting suspended for 25 games is pretty good for them because they just gotta get through those first 25, and then he'll be back. I believe the first game he's back. I could be wrong by it, but I think the first game he's back is Christmas Day.
So this is actually very interesting too. Uh, Adam Silver was very smart by doing this. It's just enough where it's 25 games where he looks like he's making an effort to discipline Ja and make sure he gets better. It's also enough where the league keeps him as a moneymaker because now when they make the schedule, all those big matchups the first time are going to take place after that 25 game mark. So when you
Right.
see in the middle of December, those Christmas, he'll be back by Christmas Day. He'll play in that game, but he's going to miss out on all the All-Star selections, the All-NBA teams, the
That's gonna.
defensive teams,
Hmm.
MVP, most improved player. He is not eligible for any award because he won't meet that minimum standard of 65 games.
Yep.
So even if he plays every single game, max amount he can get is 57. That's not going to be enough. So Adam Silver pretty much punished him financially with losing tens of millions of dollars
Yeah. I mean,
by doing this. So that to me, it's a really smart business decision that it's going to hurt Jaws Park pockets, but it's not going to hurt the NBA's revenue stream in the grand scheme of things.
right. I mean, look at what happened with Jalen Brown this past season. I mean, him getting All NBA has helped him now. His market is going to be bigger now than ever than it was before by him getting that All NBA selection. Um, those selections are huge when it comes down to it in the financial scheme of things. So for Morant, at the end of the day, it does hurt him, but that's what happens when you do stupid stuff like that off the court. So it's a lesson that needed to be taught. Hopefully, it gets to him and that it will help him, not do the stupid crap he's doing, and will get him to help Memphis try to get further in the playoffs and maybe even win a championship here or there.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess we'll have. I guess we'll see where he ends up.
Right, and I think you're right for the NBA. I mean, they hit it. You hit the nail on the coffin. I mean, the the fact that he's gonna be back for Christmas Day, they're gonna be able to market that perfectly. They're gonna be able to say, "Oh, look at this, ESPN, get ready. You're gonna have John Morant's first game back from his suspension. You're gonna be talking about all these storylines going into that day on Christmas Day." I mean, it's perfect for the NBA. Look how the NFL did it with Deshaun Watson. I mean, the first game he came back was against his former team, the Houston Texans. Like
Yeah, he's ended up
it's
being a little bit of a bust this year, but the
yeah, but
marketing was there.
exactly. The whole scheme of things is that these commissioners are trying to market it to the best of their abilities, and it's gonna at the end of the day hopefully work out for them. And so, I mean, you would think for the NBA it's probably going to work out considering Morant's going to be back Christmas Day. Not sure who they're going to be playing on Christmas, but at the end of the day, Memphis gets their superstar back after 25 games. They're hoping that he can, they could be at least somewhat competitive by that time he comes back, and then he can help them make a playoff push.
I'm gonna call my shot here. It's gonna be Lakers Grizzlies Christmas Day.
I think so too. I think so too.
It makes too much sense with the whole Ja and them being in the finals last year. I'm sorry, the Western Conference Finals this past year for the Lakers. The whole Ja controversy.
Lakers
Everyone's
knocking
that
them out.
yeah, Lakers knocking them out. All makes this is screaming Lakers Memphis in LA
Shannon
on
Sharp.
Christmas Day. Yeah, no, it makes sense. He's gonna be the
It'll be
Lakers are gonna
courtside.
have him courtside.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see who they schedule them against, but it will be something to look at once he is back from a suspension. It will definitely bring in viewership for Christmas Day as it usually does in years past for the NBA. But let's now talk about Andrew, one of the bigger stories in regards to ownership of a team, and that is the Charlotte Hornets now will have a new owner. Michael Jordan finally selling the team after what was it, 13 years as the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. So
Yep.
a time is ending in Charlotte. Um, I'm trying to think of the best words to describe this tenure for Jordan. It really was not the best of times.
Mediocre,
Did they
but
make
he
the
10x his money.
What did
So
they make the playoffs once?
he drafted Kemba Walker. He
And
made the
that's it.
playoffs once or twice. And he 10x his money, which at the end of the day, Jordan's a businessman.
He's a businessman at the end of the day. We all know that.
So he got
Um,
them to his peak value because, listen, the Hornets, he finally had him on the right trajectory, right? He
yeah,
finally had it. He has LaMelo now. He's got other good young
we have the number
pieces
two pick
around
in the
him.
draft now.
He's got the number 2 pick in the draft. So to me, the Hornets were primed to make a playoff push in the next year or two.
And
But
they
Jordan
have a
kind of
bunch of
sees him.
cap space too.
Yeah, I mean Jordan right now. Jordan has him in a great position to succeed right now. So he's not gonna have a. This just makes sense to sell him kind of at peak value right now. Got $2 billion for him, and I can't blame him. He didn't have really a lot of success in the last 10 years, but over the
No,
last couple, it was starting to trend like he had something here. You know what? If Lamelo didn't get hurt, I think they would have made the playoffs, or at least the play-in, I should say.
that's a bold take. I don't necessarily hate the take, but I don't know. Charlotte was,
Oh, they were tanking.
yeah, they were. I mean, once Lamelo got hurt, you kind of saw it in writing that they were going to tank,
But you got to remember, during the preseason, everyone had pegged them to be in that
like a
8 to
fringe
10
team.
race.
Yeah,
Like they said,
yeah.
oh, like they were going to be there with like Washington and the Knicks, and fighting for that 10 spot or 9 spot or 8 spot, whatever it was. But LaMelo got hurt early, so they said,
Bridges
they embraced the
had that
tank.
stupid stuff off the court too. That also killed. That also really hurt them too.
Yeah, yeah, no, that definitely hurt too. But listen, he 10x his money and onwards and upwards to new ownership.
All I'm gonna say is when you draft Michael Kidd Gilchrist number 2 overall, that's when stuff like that is gonna happen. Michael Jordan, let's just face facts. He had a lot of bad. There was a lot of bad draft picks during his tenure as the owner of this
Oh,
team.
100%.
A
But he
lot
also
of
got
bad draft
screwed out of a
picks.
lot of number 1 overall picks, though.
No, I know, but when you look at his tenure and you look at the draft picks he did make, even without getting screwed, I mean, they're not pretty at all. Not
Oh no,
pretty.
there's no. You really can't fight that.
No, you can't at all. So we'll have to see how this new ownership does for Charlotte, and what they have the number 2 overall pick as we mentioned in this upcoming NBA draft on Thursday. We'll see if the new tenure can get it done, and hopefully the Mellow Ball comes back from his injury and is better than ever.
Yeah, and I want to go into our final piece of news before we end of this recap, before we go into our draft, and that is college basketball related. And good old Bob Huggins of West Virginia University being arrested for a DUI this past weekend, blowing a .21. He didn't even know what city he was in, and he
He
was forced to resign uh, this past Sunday.
he thought he was in Columbus.
Yeah,
He was
he
in
was in
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. He thought he was in Columbus. The rumor has it, from what
Uh,
I've read, is this has happened a lot. And behind his turn a blind eye to in West Virginia. But this is what he got fired for in Cincinnati too.
I,
This is why he got fired in Cincinnati, because he had DUIs, and this university had
I'm
to let him
just
go.
not sure what to say because he was already suspended after the whole incident that he had on the radio from a few months prior for making those comments about the Xavier fans, and then and then this happens. I mean, I'm not. I'm not sure what to say about it. I think this was the right move at the end of the day for both parties. I mean, Bob obviously needs to get some help and fix himself. West Virginia just needs to move on at this rate. We kind of been saying it for years that West Virginia needed to move on from Bob Huggins.
Oh, this is a blessing in
Um,
disguise for them.
exactly. I think it's as you said, a blessing in disguise. That they just getting a new coach for at least this season, and then finding that true head coach for next year. Because listen, at the end of the day, West Virginia is still a job that people will want to go to. We might not agree with that, but there are coaches in college basketball that would want to coach for West Virginia, considering that the conference that they're in and who the teams they play and stuff like that. It's still a good program overall for basketball. I think we'll have to see what they do this season. The problem is, though, we've seen already a couple of their recruits now are looking to transfer potentially out of the program, so that does hurt them. Um, but the whole new regime will have to lead the way for at least this year, going into next season, trying to find that true head coach.
Yeah, and remember, this is what was so important, that the transfer portal had shut down already. But since Bob Huggins got fired or resigned, pretty much, he effectively resigned, but in reality, he got
I
fired.
think, yeah.
Yeah. Those West Virginia players have 30 days now to either find a new home or enter the transfer portal for a special one time only. And it's rumored that 8 players are going to leave. And I know, Nick, you have this game circled on our calendar.
I know you
Uh,
do.
December 1st, it's a Wednesday, or I believe it's a Wednesday. You have St. John's going into Morgantown, which is probably going to be consisting of the West Virginia Super AAU team.
Super AAU.
Or Beer
They're
League
gonna have
or
Grayson out.
YMCA
They're gonna
League.
have
Yeah,
Grayson out
they're
there.
gonna have Grayson out there, uh, chucking up 3 pointers.
Oh,
So I'm looking forward to that
please
game.
don't bring up that video again. I beg. Um, yeah, I already, I didn't really get to talk to Grayson much about it. I mean, obviously, they're just concerned about how this season goes, at least in the way
Oh, this
of.
season's already done.
Yeah, exactly. They don't
You're
know
not even
who's going to
playing for
coach
the
the
You're not
team.
even playing for the CBI, pal. You're playing for you're already going to Cancun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, I think we hit the, I think we hit it perfectly. I think this year's kind of chalked for them. I think it's all about next season
You know what this
trying to
reminds
get
me
that head
of?
coach. Yeah, what's up?
When St. John's fired Steve Laffin and they brought in Mullen.
Yeah, but you love Steve Lavin.
Yeah, but hear me out. They had all those
Yeah,
players leave,
yeah.
and then they pretty much had an AAU team the first year, and they won like 8 games. This is gonna be like an 8-win season for West Virginia.
And they have to endure what I endured that freshman year with Durant Johnson and all of them.
Ron Wawika, Felix
Yeah,
Balanu,
you're gonna have a long year, West Virginia, if that's the case.
Christian Jones. You got some legends on that squad.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to call them legends, be my guest. I don't know about that. So it'll definitely be an interesting year for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Before we get into our next segment, Johnson, just want to give a congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights as they won their first ever Stanley Cup final after beating the Florida Panthers in 5 games last week. 6 years it only took for the expansion Golden Knights to win that championship, so very good mark for them to get that title, the first title for a Vegas team. We'll have to see if any of the other Vegas teams become champions in the near future, but the Golden Knights get it done. They did it pretty convincingly against the Florida Panthers team that just looked very unmatched, kind of like we saw in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic series played by Vegas, and Florida continues to have that magical year throughout all sports, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, just really all their sports almost firing on all 8 cylinders, but they
Yeah,
seem to just sputter and
they just ran
die
into
down a little bit
yeah. They
by the time
just
they get to the finals.
it's the glass slipper fell off at the end of the day. That's all that happens.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean it's they've had a fantastic time, and shout out to the Panthers for playing a great season and making that miraculous run. But shout out to Vegas for winning their first cup in under 7 years, I believe. It was year six
sixth,
for them.
there was their 6th year in the NHL. Still not the fastest. I still think the Florida Marlins were the fastest
It
expansion
is.
team to win a championship. They did it in 4 years. So you still have that to hold on to, Johnson.
I think I'll always hold on to that.
I'm sure you will. But now it's time to get into our next segment. And this could be an interesting segment because, as some of you may remember, we did a mock draft when the NFL draft came around in April. And, I think it's time that we do now one for the NBA draft that's happening this Thursday. Very interesting draft. We talked about it. Victor Wembanyama, the clear consensus #1 overall pick. After that is where it gets interesting because a lot of people could go Brandon Miller #2. You can go Scoot Henderson #2. There's been trade rumors. We talked about it as well. Um, when you go and look into this draft, we talked about it a little bit earlier on the show, but is there anything else you're looking into regarding maybe a trade? I've heard rumors about OJ Anunoby maybe getting dealt at some point in this draft. Zion Williamson, we've heard the rumors with him as well. Do you expect any big time move to happen in the upcoming days or even on draft night?
Dame has to get traded.
And I think we talked about it, I think Miami has to be the one that has to go all in and try to get him.
Yeah, that is what's going to happen. Dame has to get traded. He's 32 years old. They are not winning a championship with him within the next 2 or 3 years. Stop wasting his prime. Get him out of there. Send him to a contender.
And Portland's got the #3 overall pick. They could be looking at a guy like Scoot Henderson, especially if they trade Damian Lillard. So we'll have to see what happens regarding that. But now let's go into this mock draft. Now, we're going to both collectively make the #1 overall pick because we all know where it's going. But then after that, we'll be alternating picks. Johnson will go first, then I will go after him, and then we'll keep alternating as we get to the final pick of the first round of this NBA draft. We'll be looking into some of the team needs potentially for the team, maybe any potential rumors we've heard also about the pick, maybe we getting dealt, or even a team trying to trade up. But being that as of May, we know the San Antonio Spurs have been on the clock. We know where they're going with number one, and they're going with a guy that they're trying to reshape the franchise and make, some big time memories like they did with Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Tony Parker. They've got to go with the big time center, Victor Wembanyama. They just have no choice but to take him. He has so much good talent. I think he's 7'4" listed
I
as
think
a
he's
center.
7'5".
7'5". I mean,
In
7'4".
shoes. In shoes, that is.
Yeah, either way, he's just a special talent. He has really good playmaking ability as well. He could be a really big type of generational talent that the Spurs could use to try to help, reshape that franchise.
Yeah, so I think that he's the consensus number one overall pick, and that's what we're gonna start with. So then I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Charlotte, even though I think Scoot Henderson may be the best player on the board, I think they need to go Brandon Miller since they already have LaMelo. He's an incredible talent. He has the John Morant problem off the court. Fix it. I think seeing John Morant get a punishment like that is going to change his outlook on things, and hopefully he doesn't end up like Ja. But with all that talent on the court and pairing up with LaMelo, this could be something special.
Yeah, I mean, if you were able to have LaMelo, and then we know how good of a guy, player Brandon Miller is. But as you spoke about it, the issues off the court have been what teams are being concerned about. If they can get past those issues and are able to control those issues off the court, Miller and LaMelo could be a very special duo in Charlotte and try to get them back into the postseason for the first time in a long time. So don't necessarily hate the pick at all. Um, Now brings us to the third overall pick with the Portland Trailblazers. I think you're right. I think Damian Lillard does get dealt. I don't know if it happens this week. I think he does get dealt at some point in this offseason. And I think Scoot Henderson is the perfect fit to replace a guy like Damian Lillard. I think he just has really good playmaking ability as well. Really is not the same type of scorer as Dame, but can put up points if needed be. I think Portland at the end of the day just needs to find that one player that's going to, start the rebuild and try to get Portland back into, winning ways. It's going to take a little bit of time to get back to those winning ways, but at the end of the day, we both agree Portland just needs to start the rebuild, and I think trading Dame and getting a guy like Henderson would start it and would help them.
Yeah, no, absolutely hit the nail right in the head of Scoot Henderson there as well. Clearly a great talent. I don't know how he's going to. I don't know how to judge the G League Ignite yet. I really don't. I don't think we've
Yeah,
had enough
it's tough.
players yet. But that brings us to the Houston Rockets, which this is where I think the draft gets interesting because
Yeah.
you have the Thompson twins, Amen and Alsir Thompson. You have Jarris Walker. You have Cam Whitmore. There's a lot of guys. Anthony Black. So I'm not sure if I was Houston. They kind of already have a wing player, but they already have two bigs with uh, Jabari Walker and I'm sorry, Jabari. I keep on calling him Jabari Walker. He's Jabari Smith Jr.
And thinking about it too, I mean, they also still get James Harden in the
Yeah, so
offseason, so
you
there's a
know
lot
I
of ifs and scenarios for them.
so out of the Thompson twins, you have Amen and Alsair. Alsair is kind of the shooting guard, small forward, where Amen is kind of the combo guard. So being that you kind of don't know what's going to happen with your front court, I think as an insurance policy, you take Amen Thompson here.
I don't disagree with it because I think at the end of the day, Portland's going to try to move on from one of those younger players that they have, and I think it would be most likely at the guard position. You've heard the rumors about James Harden already, maybe potentially going back there. I think the point guard right now is Kevin Porter Jr., and he's not a bad point guard,
But he's
but
a wing. He's a wing at heart.
I think you just need a true point guard. I think Thompson would bring that to this team, but like we said, if they're able to get James Harden, then it would be huge for them. And getting that team back into the postseason, which they haven't been since James Harden was there. So that'll be fun to see if they were able to do that in the offseason. And we'll see if they take Thompson on Thursday. Now brings us to the Detroit Pistons, who had, let's face facts, a really bad season. They won 17 games on the year.
They had a whole year of killing Hayes just to draft the fifth overall, which is
They
rough.
yeah, they fell in the draft. They did not have Kate Cunningham at all this season. It's a tough pick because you look at their roster. Obviously, Cade, you have their guard. You have some really young players that can help you win. Got James Wiseman last year from the Golden State Warriors, who I think could help them in the long run. Jaron Duran is another guy I like as well. So I think at center, they're perfectly fine there. I think you look more towards what they have at Ford. I think they're going to try to move on from Bojan Bogdanovic. I think he's getting a little bit. He's getting up there in age. Does have a big time contract, about 20 mil per year. I think you would try to move on from that contract and try to bring in a new Ford that could help your team. The question is, Johnson, though, you have three really good forwards. You have Cam Whitmore, Jarris Walker, and Oscar Thompson. I wouldn't be inclined to go Oscar Thompson and go back to back with the Thompson brothers here.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to write it any better than that if you did it.
It's kind of like
They would love it. They would love it like the Morris twins a couple of years ago.
I was just about to bring that up. I think that would be the perfect script, just like the Morris twins went back to back. I think that's what happens here. Did the Lopez twins go back to back too?
I don't believe so. I think they're a little bit further apart.
I don't remember if Robin Lopez went after Brooke. I could be completely wrong about that.
I think they were a little bit further apart. So number 6 overall brings you to the Orlando Magic. For those of you who are not familiar with the Magic, they have a lot of guards. They have a plethora of guards. They also have a lot of big men. They also have a lot of big men. So they need to pick one of those tweeners again. But I don't know what one of these small forward / shooting guards would work best for them. Walker is kind of weird out of Houston. He's an undersized 4. You already took Oscar Thompson, which would have been a better fit. Being that Orlando likes to hoard young talent, I'm going to go with Cam Whitmore out of Villanova here. He wasn't the strongest shooter this year. That Villanova squad was putrid. We saw him live and in person. Yeah. A little bit undersized for small forward, but he's on the younger side. He is a true freshman, so he did play against kids that are older than him. Above average from the field, I would say. A little below average shooting wise. Solid rebounder. Can improve a little bit at the line, but I think he was kind of a victim of playing on a really bad team this year because his individual play was really good.
Yeah, I think
so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, and I think if he goes to Orlando and he plays in that system, I think he'll be really good.
I think you look at it too with Orlando. You kind of saw it towards the end of the season where they were starting to get things going, and it looked like maybe they were going to somehow maybe make the play in. Just didn't happen at the end of the day. But I don't hate the Whitmore pick. I mean, I think you hit it perfectly on the head. I mean, Villanova had a really bad year last year in terms of what they've done years prior. Whitmore was their biggest bright spot on the team. I think if he was to go to the Magic, it would help them because I think that's one of their key issues. I think just getting another forward really could help them, but I'll have to see where they would put him if they were to use him in a starting role or at least off the bench for now. It now brings us to the 7th pick with the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are an interesting team. We know they have Tyrese Halliburton. He's one of the better young players in the NBA. There's been rumors that they might be trading Buddy Hield in this upcoming draft on Thursday. You have Miles Turner, etc. We know the issue. He could be getting traded as well. I think they also go forward, and I think with Jarris Walker out of Houston still being there on the board, could have went as early as number 5. I think him falling here to number 7 is perfect for the Pacers. I think at the end of the day, they just got to try to help this team get better. They also just fell short of the play-in. I think if they're able to add another young forward, it could help them maybe get just an inch closer to getting there.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good pick. I think Indiana needs everything, and nothing's really off the table for them.
Right.
So that brings us to the next pick, which belongs to Washington Wizards, another team that's in a full rebuild right now.
Especially after yesterday, yeah.
So I think here you go for best pick available. And there's a couple picks you can go here. I think you can go Grady Dick out of Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can go Anthony Black out of Arkansas, who I'm leaning towards. Or you can go Keontae George out of Baylor here. They want a guard or a forward that would produce immediately at an NBA level.
You got to think about it too. Chris Paul probably won't be there. I would imagine he's probably going to get bought out. So they could be
And
looking at guard, especially.
so I think you're looking for uh kind of a tweener again, the shooting guard, small forward. So I'm gonna go with Anthony Black here. Had a really strong postseason at Arkansas. They've been an NBA factory lately, so I think he's really the best pick here.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, like we said, they traded Bradley Beal. They now have an empty role at the two guard. Chris Paul probably gets bought out, so they'll have an empty role at point guard as well. So just getting someone there to fill one of those two roles would be helpful. And I liked Anthony Black's game. He was really good for that Arkansas Razorback team, helping them get to the NCAA tournament. So be curious to see if they do take him in this upcoming draft on Thursday. Next team we have now is the Utah Jazz, and for the longest time, Johnson, Utah was in the playoff discussion for most of the season. They just had a really bad second half of the year. Um, they're an interesting team also going into this draft because I think you could see they have some of the talent there that could help them get into the postseason. Walker Kessler was huge for them last year. Lauri Markkanen started to really show up for that team as well. Um, you have guys like Colin Sexton also there. Jordan Clarkson was a reigning sixth man of the year going into last season. I think you have to get a guy that could play maybe the 2 or 3 for this team. And I think Keontae George is, I think, the perfect fit for a team like the Jazz, a guy that could play one of those two positions and help them get some depth. I think Ochai Ajabi was their starting shooting guard for most of the year, as well as Jordan Clarkson potentially.
He was.
So I think George would help them get some more shooting and give them some more length and size for this team.
Now you made my job pretty difficult here because I was between two guys here for Dallas.
Now, keep in mind, this pick has been heavily rumored to be traded. The Mavericks
So
seem
I
like they
don't
want to
know if
trade
they
it.
trade this pick.
Okay.
And this is why. I think if it's on draft day and these two guys are available, which is Bilal Koulibaly from France. He's on the same team as Victor Wembanyama, the European prospect. Him and or Grady Dick, depending on who you if you're really believing this. So Dallas has immense problem with their spacing right now. They need knockdown shooters. So Grady Dick, when he was at Kansas, shot almost 6 threes a game at 40% a game. Fantastic. And we know Dallas loves their European prospects, whether it's Dirk or now it's Luka. They've had a history of European prospects and being patient with them. So I think if available between Grady Dick and the new French prospect, I think they can go with the French prospect here. If they
Okay.
don't trade it, that is.
I don't hate it because you got to think about what they have at power forward right now. And I think they're going to be getting rid of Christian Wood also in the offseason. I think they just need to figure out and getting more depth on that team. You have guys like Dwight Powell starting as well, Maxi Kleber, Marquise Morris. They just got to get someone that could help them at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
no, listen, this guy it would be a fantastic. He's listed as a small forward, but he could definitely play small ball for 6'8". He's got a 7'3" wingspan. He's 200 pounds, so he needs to put on a little bit of weight, but he could shoot the ball. He's really good at the rim. He's solid from the line. He's not the best rebounder or the best passer, but this is also European style basketball. We don't know how it's going to translate into the NBA. How his game's going to translate, but he's a fantastic prospect, and he's just kind of shooting up the boards. And if he's here at 10, I think they take him.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with it at all. But it brings me now to the next pick because this is a tough pick with the Orlando Magic once again. We went with Ken Whitmore, their first pick. They have this pick due to the Nikola Vucevic trade from years prior with the Chicago Bulls. It's tough because you look at some of the guards you have there. We know the Magic have a lot on their roster as it pertains to guards. It would kind of lean me to maybe going center with the pick, but it's so tough because they have it. They have guys like Wendell Carter, Bol, Goga Batatse. They're not bad centers at all. We talked about it. They maybe could go after DeAndre Ayton if they were to trade with the Phoenix Suns at a potential rumor deal that we made up. Um, I don't know. This is a really tough pick. I really want to lean towards I think they also could use a two guard. I don't know if Casey Wallace from Kentucky can really play the two guard like that.
He's a little undersized, about 6'4".
it kind of makes me want to think Jordan Hawkins, maybe from UConn.
Hey, Jordan Hawkins would be a great pick there. He's a little bit older, but I think he'd be a fantastic pick there.
6'5", just a little bit taller than Wallace, but I think he seems more of like a two guard
Oh, he's the
than
true two
Wallace
guard.
is. Because
100%
I
a true
think
two guard.
Wallace is more of a traditional point guard when you look at him. I'm gonna go Jordan Hawkins with the pick. I really was considering Derek Lively from Duke, but I just don't think the Magic need a center like that right now at that pick. They could probably grab someone in the second round to do something like that.
All right, and this next pick belongs to the Oklahoma City Thunder at number 12. This is the easiest pick of night. Put Grady Dick on the Thunder right now.
Grady Dick on the Thunder. Okay.
That's just such an easy pick. He shoots the ball well. He'll mesh well with that young talent. He's gonna have to fight for minutes there, but it's all young guys on that team. He'll be fine, and there won't be immense pressure for him to play right away. And listen, he's going from Kansas to Oklahoma City. That's not too much of a culture shock, so
Yeah.
this would be perfect for him.
I mean, this thing about for the Thunder. I mean, the first of many years where they're going to have a lot of draft picks. So it's not going to be the first time we keep hearing the name Oklahoma City in this NBA draft. Now, this next pick, the Toronto Raptors, and I think you kind of made this one easy for me as well. I mean, they just lost Fred VanVleet. I don't think he goes back to the team. I didn't take Casey Wallace with the Magic pick. I think him going to Toronto would be good for them. I think he's more of that point guard role that they lost when they got rid of Kyle Lowry. You have guys like Siakam that could score for them. They're going to be trying to look in maybe to the offseason and maybe getting some scoring for their team. I think Wallace can help them try to, in playmaking ability wise, getting some of those guys points. And I think for Toronto, I think they just start a rebuild. I think that's where they're kind of going with this right now. You've heard the Anunoby trade rumors. Wouldn't be shocked if Siakam maybe gets sold in the next couple of years. I think Wallace could be a guy that, if developed correctly, could help this team in a rebuild.
All right, so that brings us to number 14, New Orleans Hornets. Oh, New Orleans Hornets. Jeez, New Orleans
He's a
Pelicans.
2005.
Yeah, back in 2005. So pick number 14 for New Orleans Pelicans. If Zion gets dealt, they're gonna pick Taylor Hendricks if he's available. But since I don't think he's going to get dealt, give me Derek Lively from Duke. I
Okay.
think they want to move on from Jonas Valanciunas. He's getting up there in age, and he'd be the perfect guy to kind of learn from. He was uh, ever so off from a double double machine at Duke. He averaged, I think it was 5 and 5, and if you give it per 36, that'd be close to 10 and 10. Didn't really get a lot of playing time at Duke. They kind of struggled at points this year, but man, when he played, he looked really good.
Yeah, I think Lively would, like I said, I was considering him going with the Magic pick at 11. I think him falling to 14 would be really good for the Pelicans because you're right, Valanciunas is getting up there in age, so I think that would be a good opportunity for them to do that and take him. And I think you also kind of helped me with this next pick with the Atlanta Hawks because I truthfully believe that they're going to be trading John Collins in the next couple weeks. I don't think he stays with the team. Taylor Hendricks has fallen this far, projected to potentially go in the top 10. I don't see why Atlanta wouldn't take him here at number 15 overall.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now that we're outside the lottery officially,
Yep.
this is where it gets interesting because these are teams now that are just pretty much in the playoffs or they're looking to make it kind of 15th through 20 is kind of like you're in hell. Like where these picks really won't help much. So I think at this point you just take the best player available.
Yeah, BPA and stuff like that. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
for example, for the Jazz, I have at this point, I think they still need to fill out that backcourt. So I think you take Kobe Buffkin out of Michigan.
Okay.
Uh, Only really logic I have is that Jordan Clarkson's up there in age. They traded Donovan Mitchell, and they're still trying to figure out who's the best player on that team.
No,
Um,
I agree.
so I think you take another wing slash guard or slash point guard, whatever you want to call him, and see where he figures and where he fits best on that team, and take it from there.
Yeah, the Jazz are another team like the Thunder where they have a lot of picks in the next couple of years, and they're going to be trying to build this off of the draft and try to get this team right. And if they're able to get Buffkin that thing with the second pick, I think that wouldn't hurt them at all. And then you talked about it. You look at some of these teams that are in this range now they're out of the lottery. It brings us to the next pick with the Los Angeles Lakers, and we know it's going to be an interesting offseason for them because they are potentially trying to get Kyrie Irving to go there. They could look into maybe getting Draymond Green to go there. So this could lead the draft going a lot of different ways for them. But there's been one guy, Johnson, that I've really liked for a while in this draft, and I think would be a nice fit for the Lakers. Because keep in mind, Austin Reeves is an RFA. I'm not sure if they bring him back depending on what he commands in the offseason. I think Nick Smith out of Arkansas could be a fun fit for this team. He's a very good, young player, only 19 years of age, can shoot when needed to be. I think he could be a fun player for the Lakers if you put him on that team overall, especially if they're to lose a guy like Reeves. Smith could play the one or the two for this team.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It would be a really interesting pick to see where he goes. Which brings us to pick number 18 of Miami Heat. This is an easy one. Give me Leonard Miller out of a G League. This guy just screams Miami to me. There's not. Maybe it's because he is a large forward who can rebound. He's a foreign player. He's going a little bit under the radar. Can't really shoot that well, but to me, he just kind of screams Miami.
Yeah, I think you gotta look at it too. This also could be a Portland Trailblazer pick because this could be involved in a Damian Lillard type of deal if Damian was to go there. So
Yeah, true, true.
there's a lot of scenarios regarding that. Um, but I don't disagree. He does really scream like a Miami Heat pick now. That more that you mentioned it. The next pick is interesting because now I'm stuck between two players. I think once with Draymond Green now gone from Golden State, and like I said, I don't think he goes back. I'm kind of between a couple players for this next
I
pick.
think I know where you're going.
I it's so tough because I'm kind of leaning Chris Murray from Iowa with this pick. Um,
To me, that's the perfect pick.
I think they just need a guy that can help them. He's 6'8", I think 22 years of age. I think he would help
No,
this
he's battle
team.
tested.
Yeah, I think he would help this team overall. He's not the same type of player, obviously, as Draymond was, but he could still help them get back to the playoffs next season and maybe even make a run if they're able to add some talent around Steph Curry.
Hey, he's bigger than Draymond. He rebound probably just as well. Maybe not at the NBA level, but just talking college comparison wise, he could shoot better than Draymond already. I'm not saying he's going to be Draymond or whatever, but
Right.
in that Draymond Green like role, when you're just trying to pick from the draft, I think it's Chris Murray at this
And
point.
I think you want a guy more that you, like you say, he's battle tested. He's 22 years of age, so he's already seen it all in regards to his college career. So you want a guy that's already kind of established and try to help you win another championship.
All right, so that brings us the 20th pick in the draft, and that belongs to the Houston Rockets. Still trying to figure out what they're doing with that small forward slash shooting guard spot. I know they have they got Jalen Green there, but they still need someone else to play next to him. Earlier in the draft for the Houston Rockets, we already took Amen Thompson. Uh, I think it's usually in poor taste to take another wing, but since you don't know what's going to happen this offseason, I think you take Bryce Sensabaugh out of Ohio State, who plays the same position. But remember, both these guys could end up starting.
Yeah,
Because technically, Amen Thompson's more of a point shooting guard, where this
right.
guy's kind of more of a true small forward. So even though they're roughly the same size, you could have your point guard, shooting guard, small forward all be around 6'6", and then have your monster center in the middle and your big man at the four. To me, this is kind of like a modern NBA team you're building.
Now, I'm not going to lie. I did not think that's where you were going with this pick because I thought you were going to go with a different player. But since he's now here on the board at 21 with the Brooklyn Nets, now keep in mind they have back-to-back picks, so they will be making two selections. I really like Dariq Whitehead from Duke, and he's still very raw. He's only 18 years of age, but I think him going to Brooklyn would help. They kind of need a guy that could play a 2 or 3 type of role for them. You look at the roster, they might lose Cam Johnson in the offseason. Mikal Bridges was playing more of the 2 guard as the season went on. I think
All right, and since we're already on the topic of versatility with pick number 22, give me Jet Howard out of Michigan, 6'8" guard out of Michigan. Talk about versatility. This guy could play probably the 2, 3, or 4 for or whatever they want to develop him into in the NBA. So again, kind of like another raw prospect, but that's what Brooklyn needs right now.
That brings us up to the next pick, which is the Portland Trailblazers at pick 23. With our first pick, we had them taking Scoot Henderson to potentially replace Damian Lillard. I think Johnson. I think they have to go forward with this pick, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they go center because you gotta think Nurkic is probably getting up there as well. They might try to move on from him as well as potentially Damian Lillard. I think they'll play it safe and go forward for now, and it really comes down to what forward would they take because there is a couple on the board that I wouldn't mind them going. Um, who do we like? Noah Clowney or JJ Jackson or GG Jackson? So I said JJ.
I think you go Noah
I
Clowney here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because you can also look at a rebuild. Clowney is 18 years of age also, but that's the same thing with Jackson. I think Jackson's more of like a 4 in terms. I think Clowney could provide you some versatility, so we'll go with Noah Clowney with the pick.
All right, so that brings us to pick number 24 and the Sacramento Kings. Rough way to end their season, but they have a lot of promise going forward. This is hard because they have a lot of their spots already kind of filled out. So I don't know really where they should go here. I have a couple of ideas. Like he's still on the board. I'm staring at it.
I know.
I know they just took a point guard in the last draft. I feel like they're gonna do it again. Give me Jalen Hood Schifino from Indiana. He's kind of a tweener. Um, Listen, I don't think they made the right decision with Davion Mitchell over Tyrese Halliburton. So Davion Mitchell hasn't been great so far. So maybe some competition will spark him.
Yeah, I think that's always that tells players sometimes getting that competition. So I don't necessarily mind that, and maybe it will help Mitchell. For Memphis, for me, you're getting rid of Dylan Brooks. You're gonna need someone to play the 3. I think Max Lewis at a Pepperdine can help them in that role. They need a more traditional small forward, and you look at it also. I talked about Gregory Jackson or GG Jackson. Um, I think he's more of a power forward, so I don't think he would really fit in that role, considering that they already have Jaren Jackson Jr. I think Lewis would be better considering he could play. He's more of a traditional 3 that could potentially play 2 as well.
Yeah. So I think at this point, you've Indiana's gonna have two more picks here.
Yep,
Or two picks, I should say. So
you're
I
right.
am not going to. I'm trying to figure. I'm picking here,
Yep,
and you're picking now. So I'm taking both of Indiana's picks, right?
you. No, you got this one, and then I have the next one.
Man, so all right, so just to make it make sense, then I know they can get him at 29, but since I don't think Nick will take him, um, he's the son of Indiana basketball at this point. Give me Trey Jackson Davis. I think you have to take him if you. He's a late first round pick anyway. I know he's probably closer to maybe 30 or 29 than he is at 26, but I think you just need to take Trace Jackson Davis on this Indiana team.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie with you. I was probably not gonna take it with the 29th pick, so
Take
I'm
him.
glad you did.
Like if for any good juju in the state of Indiana, you have to take Trace Jackson Davis.
That's fair. That's fair. Now we got the Charlotte Hornets coming up with the 27th pick. We went Brandon Miller, number 2 overall. They're in such a weird spot because they could use a guard as well. I mean, after LaMelo, I think the shooting guard right now is Terry Rozier. They really could use some size on that team and at that 2 position, which I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they try to put like Miller in a type of role there, but he's more of a 3 or a 4. Um, I think because of that, I'm kind of going to lean towards Colby Jones out of Xavier with this pick. He's a 6'6 guard, can give you that versatility that they need, and can shoot if they need him to. And like I said, I think that's what's lacking for this Hornets team for their guard per se. They don't really have that size. I think LaMelo is the only guy on that team that gives you the size that they have at guard. none of the other guards really give you that.
All right, so that brings us to the next pick number 28 with the Utah Jazz. To me, the Jazz's roster is full at this point. To me, they have enough young talent where I know he's still a first round pick, but
Yeah.
this is where I'm going with this. Give me a Euro stash Ryan Rupert. I know he's not playing in Europe. I know he's playing in New Zealand, but he's from France. Give him as the stash player that the Jazz are going to play in, and let him develop overseas. And if he turns out being good, that's a good pick by him. If he doesn't turn out being good, well, he was picked number 28.
I like the logic. Okay, that's fair. Indiana again, 29, second to last pick of the draft. I'm honestly I'm trying to think, Johnson, because you look at this roster and you see some of their size and depth at four now. We gave them Jarris Walker and Trace Jackson Davis. I think they have to go guard potentially with this next pick. I wouldn't be surprised maybe they try to go center in a guy like James Najee. I just think they can maybe use another guard on the team. And I think I'm probably going to butcher this name. Braden Podziemski. That's the best way I'm going to be able to pronounce that.
Out of Santa Clara?
Out of Santa Clara, yeah. I think that would be a good fit for Indiana. I think they're another team like Utah where they have an abundance of first round picks. I don't know if they make all three of those picks. I wouldn't be surprised maybe they trade one or maybe even two of them. But I think I think Podziemski would be a good fit no matter what team he goes to, just because I think he could be a good starting caliber guard for any team.
All right. And this pick may be a bit of a reach, or maybe just a little bit. I think the Clippers roster is also full based on what I've seen. So, but they want a player that they can stash away for a year or two. Bring him on their roster. They can kind of he's malleable, right? He can learn the system, maybe become a good player. So he's shown flashes of it at UConn already. Give me
Oh,
Andre Jackson Jr. He's maybe a little bit of a reach
oh,
here at 30, but not really too much. But he's a winner. It's something that LA needs. Um, and I think he'll be. I think he'll be better in the pros than he is as an NCAA prospect. He had some good games. He really saved them um, against Iona. He had a big game. I know he only scored 10 points, but he had 7 rebounds and 5 assists in that game, along with a steal to kind of really break Iona's pressure because Iona was kicking their ass in that game. And then he kind of got a spark and kind of lit a fire under that team. So he's a good pick at 30 for the Clippers, where he has a lot of great intangibles. But
yeah.
um, but that would be my pick for to round out this draft.
I'm shocked you didn't go Jamie Jaquez out of UCLA. Keep the
It makes too
homegrown
sense.
talent.
It makes too much sense for the Clippers, so they're not going to do it.
So you're saying they're inept to making too much sense?
Yeah, no, he's a senior. He's a winning guy. He shot the ball well, not really from three, but overall he was a good inside the 3 point line, solid rebounder, solid scorer. UCLA, obviously legacy program there in the state of California, legendary basketball school. But that makes too much sense. He's from California, makes way too much sense.
Fair enough. I won't really fight you on that. I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a really good draft on Thursday. It will kickstart what's already been a hot start to this NBA offseason after the Bradley Beal trade. Should be a couple more trades going down the next couple of weeks. And some big time free agency signings we know are going to happen. Next week, when we get into our show, we're going to be recapping this NBA draft and see if there were any big time surprises. And then we'll be looking into this upcoming free agency and we'll be making some predictions potentially on where some of the big top free agents will be going in this year's NBA offseason, which, if compared to previous offseason, should be a big time, I guess, movie as compared to the other ones should be. So, any last remarks, Johnson, before we sign this one off?
Yeah, I'm happy I'm not in this draft because as a Knicks fan, I used to look forward to this, and now this is an afterthought for me. So
See,
this is
isn't it
this
isn't it
is
good to be
nice.
a decent team for once and not have a pick?
Yeah, but no, I love tanking though, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
So be a Hornets fan.
I'm good.
All right, fair enough. Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up the show this week on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. A very hot start to this NBA offseason with this Bradley Beal trade to the Phoenix Suns. Does it help them win a championship? We'll have to see. We'll have to see how the NBA draft happens on Thursday. Could we have more trades like Damian Lillard going down? Maybe a Zion Williamson? Could be a very big time tumultuous offseason in the NBA. We'll have to see in the next couple of weeks how it all unfolds. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your weekend.